No one wanted to admit where the battle would take them, but now Farid was about to tear all the goblins to pieces. Even the orc boy has made his own decision at this moment. No matter what, he must make the problem in front of him get a final solution, and this is where the problem arises. Instead of causing him pain and pressure like before, although he can understand in his heart, if he doesn't think about anything at this moment, then there are some things that don't matter, just save your own orc warriors. But these goblins' attack methods and speed are surprisingly fast and efficient, which makes Lu Boy have great doubts. How do these goblins exist in this world? What good will they do for themselves? For a while, he couldn't figure out these things, but continued to attack the goblins in his own way. It's true, Sumo developed a bad feeling about their mannerisms, and command them quickly, let them do things according to their own methods, so that they will not be hurt. Farid, you must be careful when doing things. Goblins don't always think that things are easy, but once you are attacked by them, you will inevitably suffer greater damage. This is my request to you. I hope you will implement it in place, okay? After listening to Sumo's words, Farid actually wanted to make an immediate change. But I'm afraid he won't be able to make him as satisfied with these goblins as he imagined, as if he knows his next steps. But these goblins' speed of action and the way they use weapons are so straightforward. It is simply impossible to win in a short period of time. This makes Farid feel anxious in his heart. Is it because of Sumo's words that Farid has listened to? He actually wanted to make an immediate change, but I'm afraid it wouldn't satisfy him as much as he imagined. These goblins seem to know his next steps, long-haired and obedient, although they can fight 50-50 with goblins. But these goblins' speed of action and methods of using weapons are so straightforward, it is simply impossible to achieve success in a short time. Saint, I have already thought about how to make some changes to them, but I find that my strength is always a little bit worse. It's as if I was attacked from the side by these goblins in some way. If this continues, it will indeed become more dangerous for me. I'm trying to figure out a way. Don't worry. At this moment, the scout legion of the Songling tribe finally started to move under Sumo's intervention, which Chiron never thought of. Surprisingly able to see this kind of creature, his subordinates also launched attacks again and again, and carried out a very crazy blow to this kind of creature. To be honest, Chiron was really scared because he had never seen such an evil monster. But this time is different. This time with Sumo's help he is facing something, so he won't worry about it. The goblins never thought that one day they would be killed by people in such a way. He originally thought that the orcs were the existences that they could control. But this time there was a bit of a mistake. Obviously, the income was not so easy to clean up, and they were also in a state of being pulled out of danger. These goblins seem to want to retreat, but opportunity and reality have suppressed them in the corner, leaving them with no way to resist. These goblins are still fighting, and many scars have appeared on their bodies. But they never gave up easily. Unless they really couldn't bear it, these goblins might retreat to the back. That is, such a very dangerous matter has gradually begun to show in front of everyone. To be precise, the state of these goblins is simply crazy to the extreme. Although they had been seriously injured, they never meant to retreat. Farid was quite satisfied with the positive energy form of the goblins. But although the behavior is righteous, the flesh is very evil, which is impossible for ordinary people to understand. Sumo began to use his own method of consciousness to flank these poor goblins, hoping they could understand their demands. All the goblins, now I order you to give up the battle directly. No one can be very manic at this moment. Because if this is the case, then the problem will push us to a dead end, and now everyone is quiet for me, absolutely can't move without my permission. The goblins seem to have received some guidance, just after the heavy voice Susu heard. I also know that the other party is afraid of what they are already afraid of now, and dare not make any changes to themselves and the things in front of them. Sumo was very satisfied with this situation, and finally reached the state he wanted now, and Sumo Jingye began to quickly order them for a while. Everyone pauses without their permission, and no one can act or do something that should not be done at this moment. The goblins let go of their weapons in an instant, and at the same time, they were all quieter, more painful than anyone before if it was really at this juncture. So who else knows what the problem will look like? Sometimes the goblins say they are stupid. But they can always do all these things well, and they can always make these more things less comfortable. Farid and Kailong were very curious about how the goblins stopped attacking. At the same time, the orc boy also showed a helpless look. Wait, he shouldn't have acted like this without Susai's order. The original siege of the goblins has now become a very uncomfortable existence. In fact, Sumo has always had his own arrangements for this, but the orc boy is eager for revenge, and he is indeed too excited. But it also happens that the current sumo can use their anger to guide them on the right path, so that it will be much easier to solve the problem. This battle can only be described in 2 words now. The chaos has completely risen to the point where you don't look at me and I don't look at you. In particular, these goblins have almost started to lose directly, and their kneeling just now was just a trick to deliberately put pressure on Sumo's face. This is a blindfold. Farid and the orcs have already seen all this clearly. The orc boy quickly led the orcs who had insisted on being able to resist, and launched an extreme attack on these goblins. The goblins were killed and wounded, and some of their hands were still in pain and continued, kneeling on the ground. But Sumo was surprised to find that as the aura on their bodies disappeared, one by one they had begun to shrink. Could it be that their body changes were because of the support of that evil force, so they were able to expand so much? But soon Sumo realizes that he thinks too much. The evil force is just one kind, and the other kind is the kind of mark that can leave traces on them. From an uneasy angle, the enemy is transforming these goblins with the pure aura of the will of the world, which is used to directly shape the power of the goblins' bodies. It also allows these goblins to grow bigger in battle, which is the problem, and Sumo is also very fierce for this. They finally met a person with some strength. They said that if that kid can really stand up, then they are very likely to fight him head to head. Soon the battle was completely resolved with the help of the orc kid Chiron and Farid, and most of these goblins had been killed or injured. Sumo was also even more surprised to find that the recovery speed of the world has reached its expected level, and it is proceeding at a very slow speed. This is a good thing, but it is also the most anxious thing happened to Sumo. None of these goblins dare to communicate with Sumo, probably because the orc boy was here, so these goblins were afraid. Just say what you have. Don't pretend to be so sad in front of me. No one will hurt you. I promise you, as long as I am here, your lives will be safely sheltered. The same if you are planning to join my camp, and I can make each of you stronger. How about it? When Sumo said these words, a more smug look appeared on his face, which was the happiest thing for him. He was finally able to take down all these people from a certain angle, but even more dangerous things began to appear, when several of the goblins were looking at him. Just like looking at the real enemy, they gritted their teeth and were furious to the extreme, although they couldn't understand the squeak when they spoke. But from the analysis of their expressions and actions, they simply don't want to have any communication with themselves, they just regard themselves as enemies. Sir, why do you say you give them a chance? I will kill them all one by one. This is the best respect for you. Please give me this opportunity to let them know what is true, the door of pain. Being able to speak out at this moment can really prove what Kailong is in. He has long been more familiar with the battle in front of him, and he wants to express himself more at this moment. But after careful consideration, Sumo stopped him from doing this. In Sumo's opinion, if Chiron really wants to do things like this, the problem will be even bigger. The best way now is to be quiet and be quiet, don't talk too much and don't make trouble. Look, it's like you have been reborn in the true sense. Don't forget that there are still many people in the Pine Elder tribe who need to be protected. With your current level of strength, if you really go to war with the Goblin tribe, tell me how many people you have left, or they've all been killed. Sumo never gives anything when he speaks, he leaves no face, and because of this, there is a hint of helplessness in Sumo's expression. What he was curious about was why Kailong was so arrogant when he spoke, but he quickly dismissed his own way of thinking. Farid directly informed Sumo of the current situation and the truth that he could learn. He hoped that Sumo could also help him and weave these goblins into the sequence of spear monsters. But this field is really not a place to talk. Sumo ordered the orc boy to lead the team directly back to the orc tribe. After the orcs were truly liberated, they started repairing the tribe faster than anyone could imagine. In less than half a day, the tribe took shape. The outer walls are even stronger than those of the Songling tribe. At the same time, these orcs worship Sumo as a god, which is not allowed by Su et al. He knew very well that if he really became a god, the recovery speed of the will of the world would soon slow down, and in the end, it would become a negative number, and then it would be destroyed. Boy orc, if your clan goes on like this, I'll be rude. You don't take anything I said to you, do you? What I want is a real change in yourselves. Remember that there has never been a god in this world, and I'm just a being who drives the progress of reality. Sumo's remarks in the square not only made the orc boy like a lightning strike after listening to it, but even Farid and Chiron felt that what Sumo said was too mystical. Although they said that they have been on the battlefield for many years on this planet, they have experienced any crazy things in the dark world, but what Sumo said is the first time for them. This kind of novel thinking has directly overwhelmed the stubborn defense line in their hearts, making everything in front of them change in a very interesting direction. Soon Farid transmitted these messages to the spear monsters, so that the long-haired monsters could understand something, and quickly absorbed all these things into their own hands. Fast learning is more important than anything else. Under such a sudden situation, any interesting thing can actually be called nonsense, which is why Su Di is so indifferent. Soon the little orc told Sumo what he was afraid of in another way, and he hoped that Sumo could understand what he wanted next. Saint, your care and protection are not clear to me in my life, but you must know one thing. The reason why I am so honest in front of you is because I know very well that soon we will twist it into a hemp rope and experience greater wind and frost. Orc Boy is more forward-looking. Sumo is very satisfied with Orc Boy, and also gives him another kind of power. Help everyone know, at least to some extent, that it is clear how they should not do things that no one else can think of. Farid also wanted to get this kind of thing, but was rejected by Sumo in the end. From Sumo's point of view, the hairy monsters represented by Farid have begun to evolve, and most of the orcs are still in the process. The minister in an ignorant state. Farid, good things are hard. I know you want to get a lot of things, but you have to know the things in the ignorance we are going to face next. It's anything anyone can think of to threaten. I need you to bring a hairy monster to self-purify, not through my powers. This can also be regarded as hard work. After Farid really learned Sumo's thinking, he was ready for anything. No matter how great the darkness and pain ahead, he will rely on his own strength to ask for some problems and solve them all. When Farid was still secretly making up his mind, Sumo had already begun to communicate with the Orc Boy. In Sumo's consciousness, the orc should now be able to rap the goblins. In other words, the two of them are the same ethnic group, but why did these orcs and goblins have such a deep hatred? And we are very strong in these things. The strength of the goblins seems to be even crazier than you think, so why don't you tell me why? I want to understand these things clearly and not have any influence. Faced with the questioning from Sumo, the Orc Boy only normally fully narrated what happened before his tribe, the Root Goblin tribe. What else is there to say? It's nothing more than killing. They use more crazy power to suppress us, and the only thing we can do is to live reluctantly. It's that simple, Saint. The Orc Boy didn't lie, and the attitude he showed was very real. Sumo was also very satisfied with this. At the same time, Sumo continued to remind him that he must continue to maintain this attitude. Don't have any superfluous thoughts. Very well, the Orc tribe needs you as a leader. From now on you will be responsible for the orcs, and they will all be your most loyal warriors. Sumo still agrees with the way this Orc Boy speaks. From a certain point of view, this Orc Boy is now his real subordinate. After the Orc Boy understood what Sumo meant, he was not as strange as at the beginning when he did some things. On the contrary, he showed great admiration. Sumo was careful. Sumo naturally understood what he meant, and at the same time the man thought of the wave of goblin captives. Obviously these captives are not particularly friendly, although they have returned to their original state. But he was still full of fighting spirit, which made him Sumo, and the Orc Boy made a substantive mockery. You guys, you don't have any power in battle, but you are so mad in my cage, you were born to be slaves. This was Sumo's truest words, and the seemingly big goblin immediately stood up. He felt that he was capable of representing his own group at this time. Hee, we just made a mistake, but we are very fortunate to have gotten rid of the original Dark One's control, allowing us to gain freedom. Being a slave to human beings is not a particularly bad choice. As long as you can live, you will protect us and let us live well. The orc kid was really shocked. To this goblin, he didn't even speak a word before, but his mouth kept chirping, making some sounds similar to it. But he quickly thinks of the power of Sumo himself, which is easy to explain. You guys are pretty good at saying it, so let's see. Now I can give your ethnic group a little way of life, but the premise is that you must use it for me, and I ask you to do anything. You must not have any resistance, whether it is can it be done. After analysis, the goblin leader said that there is no serious problem. As long as they are not allowed to go to the battlefield, they can do anything, and they can even work endlessly until they are exhausted. Even the coolies under your hands are better than our past lives, hundreds of times more competent. We all listen to you. The orc kid next to him couldn't fully understand the situation in front of him. In his eyes, if he wanted to conquer a race, they had to be subdued through terrifying killings and torture. Sumo just relied on a few words and a series of cooperation, which completely refreshed his worldview. Even when he walked out of the prison, he was still in a state of dissociation. He was thinking, if he also had such strength, What should I do to be able to handle everything in an orderly manner like sumo? It's not so much to imitate others, it's better to combine the advantages of others and blaze your own path. Orc boy, your group is still very weak. In half a year, I think you should be able to turn them into real and powerful beings. It was Sumo's voice that sounded in his ears, and the orc boy suddenly turned his head to look at the man, first frightened and then calm. Since his heart has been seen so clearly, and the sage has given a clear path, then just do what he said. Farid has been watching Sumo's move, trying to find a chance to have a good chat with Sumo, but turned around and Sumo entered Chiron's side again. She had a lot of thoughts in her heart that she shouldn't have, but fortunately, she sent her own bodyguards. Sir, our tribal leader and the chosen saint, please come and discuss the great cause. The guard was surprisingly polite, which made Farid feel that this was an illusion for a while, but it was normal when he thought about it carefully. Fared about the long-haired monsters, are you ready? Recently, the long-haired monsters have gradually appeared in a state of evolution. You need to keep a check on that, and you absolutely can't let them suffer a lot because of something bad. Sumo's words and Farid seemed to have expected that to exist. He originally thought that this evolution would come slower, leaving him time to prepare. But after what Sumo said, it seemed like everything was going to be very difficult for him. Farid hopes that the spear monsters can have such an improvement, but the speed is too fast, which makes him a little unacceptable. I also knew that such a thing would happen, but I didn't expect it to be so fast. Many things have become a dreamlike existence for me. I really have no political way to control it completely. Regarding the overall evolution of the long-haired monster, they have to rely on you to help me check. Farid's words can also be called quite appropriate, while Chiron next to him said kindly and gave his own advice. I have a large open space here that can be used by the hairy monsters. If you want, can you build a fort of your own on that open space? In this way, the activity space will also become larger, and it will also have the effect of privacy. Why not do it? Chiron's plan was indeed a good one, but it was rejected by the law. In his opinion, the long-haired monsters should have their own territory, rather than relying on others. I'm sorry, I got Chiron in my heart, but I have to tell you that there is still a little bit of a gap between the long-haired monster and the Pine Forest tribe. I think you will give me a little time, about half a month, and I will turn this estrangement into a kind of kinship that is thicker than water. Farid's words made Sumo very uncomfortable, but Su Mijiao was able to change his attitude in an instant later, which Su Mijiao understands. If you want to completely integrate them together, you must not only have your own strength. And they have to have their own operations. Only when the two sides let go of the estrangement in their hearts will things become easier. Next, the Pine Forest tribe will repair the area just mentioned. Its purpose is very simple, and it will be used sooner or later. It is very likely that a group that will be conquered after this will inevitably join their subordinates. This is a good idea, but with the addition of goblins, these warriors of the Pine Forest tribe have appeared one after another, an illusion. In their opinion, goblins are mortal enemies. What's this all about? My lord, are these slender guys serving us too? I'll be honest, isn't this a bit out of place? Let these rubbish also join our team. I have no good feelings for goblins, unless I kill them all now, or they will not understand the hatred in my heart at all. After hearing this, Sumo instantly became angry, because Sumo didn't want such a thing to happen, and he didn't want them to hurt each other because of a little thing. For Sumo, it was like slapping his ears at his own face, and then Sumo's face and his breath became gloomy, and a powerful aura instantly swept the entire area. Is it that what I said is useless, or is what you want to do now beyond our control? Did I tell you that when faced with some things, what we need to do is very important, instead of messing with each other at this time? When Sumo said this, his voice was very loud. He was not aimed at other people, but at everyone present, so that everyone could understand what he meant, and warned these soldiers that no matter what they do, they must never be able to communicate with each other. Calculate. Sumo's words told everyone an inevitable truth at this time. If someone dares to attack each other for some trivial things, then there will be a very serious punishment waiting for them. Sumo's words and actions are entirely for the sake of these warriors. In the days after this, they will inevitably still have to help each other, and even they need to communicate in a very friendly way. Some things are like this, but soon after night, they all merged together, and everyone sang, danced, drank and chatted happily. The armor dragon and the orc boy actually hug each other, and their faces are full of special yearning for tomorrow, which is indeed a bit strange in Sumo's opinion. The goblins also got some of the real treatment they deserve now among the Pinewood tribe, although they were in the service of all the human orcs and hairy monsters of the Pinewood tribe. But they have never been subjected to all kinds of insults and hostility, and each of them has received the respect that they should have at this moment, which cannot be given by other people. This is what needs to be faced with the existence of great harmony now. Originally, Sumo wanted to say a few more words, and this breath instantly made everyone quiet. Everyone's power has also begun to recover over time, which is what Sumo wants most now, and the restoration of the worlds will also brings great benefits to Sumo. But if someone gets the benefit, then there must be someone who will show a very disrespectful look to Sumo's attitude, and even have a feeling of killing in his heart. This person is the dark mage who controls the goblins, and he is the most sinister evil villain on the planet. Originally some of his ideas were to let Sumo and others be controlled by them all, but soon the situation has completely changed beyond what they can imagine now. Sumo took it. All of his war dogs went crazy when they learned that the goblins became Sumo's subordinates, which was the last thing they wanted to see. It's the last thing they want to see. It was an insult to them. What kind of existence is that person named Sumo, and why is he able to do such a thing? Can any one of you tell me clearly? I want to understand why, but you should tell me, you guys, these beasts who eat rice. After he finished getting angry, he instantly calmed down again, and at the same time quickly thought about whether he had made his prime ministers feel more scared by doing so. He turned his head with doubts written all over his face, and looked at his warrior with a very meaningful smile. He finally planned to start speaking his own words. Would you like to tell me what you are going to do next? Sumo's strength is there. If you don't attack it in some way, I don't think it makes sense. You better tell me. Your approach has also made my heart quieter. After saying this, the mage's expression became even more angry. From his cheeks, you can see how serious he is now about this kind of thing, and he has even done everything better. His subordinates also expressed that they don't need him to take action on this kind of thing. They will try to find a way to trouble Sumo, and then let Sudi take the pressure this time. Master, you are the prime minister of this planet. Everything must be handled by you. If you are angry at this moment, what should we do? Are we going to be angry too? After the mage listened to the flattery under his hand, he laughed instead. He had already thought about Sumo, how to execute him next, and at the same time he quickly ordered his soldiers, all the hands to act at this moment. Do not have any delay. What I should have started, we haven't carried out until now, so let's find a method that can crush Sudi and his subordinates from the final plan at the beginning. Those orcs will also be punished, and those goblins, let's not let any of us go. Do you understand what I mean? After saying this, the current mage's expression is even more special. He feels that he can definitely succeed, and he has already thought about how to deal with Sumo and his warriors at that time. His expression is full of madness. This kind of distorted people and things on this planet are also dissipating quickly with the passage of time, as if the situation of the eyes is not a problem for Sumo. But to be honest, Sumo really doesn't have any thoughts on these things. It's not necessarily obvious from his expression. He still has a lot of unfriendly thoughts now. Because he could obviously feel that someone was spying on him, it was an extremely powerful negative energy, and it was under his hand, a kind of whipping, which seemed to turn all his men into some people's lackeys. Sumo has always been very unhappy about this situation. Of course, Sumo also knows very well that it is impossible for him to break out any means to put pressure on his opponent in a short period of time. So the easiest and most friendly way is to observe the movement of the other party, which has become what Sumo needs to do now. In the middle of the night, some warriors of the Pine Forest tribe were on patrol. The Zengren goblins and the hairy monsters had already rested. It is obviously wrong to let them cut into this battle. Sumo can only reluctantly run the will energy of the whole world and start to explore the places he is familiar with. Soon Sumo saw what he wanted to see. To be precise, it was a very evil mage who was attacking himself with his power. Sumo has always been the best way to deal with this kind of person. He quickly exhausted his techniques and wanted to take advantage of the fact that his opponent was not paying attention to gather his strength, so that he could understand what a feeling. But soon Sumo found that the other party seemed to see himself, and the two of them could be counted as the first real communication with each other in history. It's funny, after meeting someone like you, I seem to feel that everything is so easy and efficient. Sumo. This deal is you have to make it with me, right? You will get what you want, and I can handle these warriors. After hearing such nonsense, Sumo laughed. Why does everyone want to make a deal with him? Could it be that they really understand themselves as beings with great power, which is simply impossible? Do you really want to contact me in such a way? I tell you, there is no way to gain any benefits at this time with your strength. I can completely crush you into a piece of waste. After Sumo said this, his expression became more serious than before, because he knew his opponent was now. The other party seems to be relying on their own advantages and wants to continue to suppress Sumo in such a way. However, his suppression was almost useless to Sumo, and instead Sumo re-engaged in a real fight against him from the side. Now between the two people, everyone feels that things are starting to go wrong, and the other party is starting to gradually have a huge sense of tearing. This is a kind of pressure created by Sumo himself for him, making him now living loveless. There is even no way to get back what is useful to him again. Sumo is so caught by him that he has almost no way to fight back now. He also finally learned the power of Sumo. Although he said that he was a little angry at this moment, it was impossible to output some other things. I don't believe your strength can be so cruel, but don't make things so extreme in front of me, Sumo. I'll tell you so. I must have known your strength and what happened by now. Things. Totally useless to me. You should know your own end well, alas. Well, I won't make you comfortable anymore. Again, Sumo has heard this many times, and he doesn't have any soft-heartedness towards this guy now, because he knows that if he is soft-hearted, the opponent will find a way to cause harm to himself, and at that time his ending may be more threatening. There is almost no way for the opponent to fight Sumo in the same sense as now, but he still seems to have other options. He is very clear that he is Sumo who can win some more things, and now it must be they need to be recreated to create madness. Sumo thought that the opponent would attack, but he didn't think that he just said some dark words in front of himself. What's the use? He couldn't even cause damage to himself. Fighting is very dangerous. Sumo tried his best to use the will of the world to attack the twisted mage mentally. It is different from his own attack. If Sumo also uses the same force to fight back, there is no way to easily find out the position of the opponent or kill the opponent in seconds, but it is different by using the will of the world. This is the power of the entire planet. Once it is used, it will definitely cause a world-class decline. However, compared with being constantly monitored by people, mobilizing the will of the world is still somewhat effective. Damn it, you would do this. Sumo is too immoral. What we said is good. Do you know that your current state is hurting me so much? If you are like this, don't blame me. I am a human being. Injustice. Sumo has heard this kind of speech many times before, and now not only is it echoing in his own mind, but also the orc boy Kai Long and Farid, who are falling asleep, have also heard this weird voice. They also knew each other face to face, showing an extremely uncomfortable feeling, so they got up and came to Sumo's side, and were ready to fight at any time. It's so interesting that you want your men to join the fight. You know it's going to put them in a desperate situation, right? Sarcasm and snickering can bring great negative energy to Sumo, and even the will of the world has been weakened a lot, but Sumo has no intention of quitting. On the contrary, he quickly assembled in his own hands, created more will of the world, allowing these two forces to merge with each other in a short period of time, and continued to strengthen everyone's aura. The twisted mage didn't feel anything until now, he just felt that he was fighting Sumo. His own damage is much greater than before, and his strength can no longer suppress Sumo as he did at the beginning. This is really not a good thing for him. Continue to think of ways. Use your own strength to place heavy positions on Sumo's side, and use the negative power of the world's will to expand the engulfment of the entire planet. I thought everything was under arrangement, but in the end, I didn't realize that I had fallen into the trap set by the men's football team. Go on. Weren't you very powerful just now? I want to see if your strength can reach the kind of madness I imagined. I won't let them join the battle. Sumo said such words easily, and after hearing this, the opponent was even more terrified and didn't know what to do. But the mage knew that there was absolutely no way to escape from this place unless it was absolutely necessary. It's just me. Let's take this opportunity to compete, and you let me know how powerful a strong man like you can show when attacking others. What Sumo said at this moment is to make the present matter no longer have any meaning. Even if the opponent can escape now, he still insists on his own way of thinking and trying to resist. Go down. This is absolutely impossible. I will never admit defeat to you. Although my strength is beyond my control, I will still fight you to the end. I want you to experience my current life. I'm not kidding you. Sumo can understand the power and threat of this evil thing when he speaks such words. For him, synthesis is a challenge and has become a dangerous attempt. The mage is very flustered now. He is being held back by Sumo, and his expression is full of pain. He knew that if he couldn't resist this time, he would be completely controlled in such a small area next time, and the unease in his heart made him feel a little bit ashamed until now. This mage is already very scared now. Any of what he said has no chance, and can only be restrained by Sumo. The armored dragon and the orc boy would like to continue to track down the source of this guy's breath, find him and put an end to it. But this is a very unfriendly thing in the eyes of Sumo and others. He doesn't want things like to happen, he just wants to make the other party suffer huge damage. Listen to me. If you don't take any action now, it will completely pull you into the abyss. This is not what I want to see. You are all my toughest fighters, and it is more important than ever to obey my orders. These words were like imperial edicts to Kai Long and the others. They did not act, but waited silently. The mage was completely convinced by Sumo's willpower. After struggling for a long time to no avail, he chose to surrender to Sumo, hoping that Sumo could give him some improvement in the way of prayer. I always have a place in what I do, and now you see that Sumo is treating me in this way. Doesn't it make any sense? It's just a waste of time, right? After hearing this, Sumo laughed, and his heart was very indifferent to what was in front of him. It was carried out in a more intimate way, which belonged to oneself, and completely subdued the other party in front of him, making his deity helpless. Sumo's move is very sinister, using such a method to restrain the opponent and not give him any space to move in the future. If the opponent really wants to make some kind of change at this moment, then it must admit the mistake in front of Sumo in public. This mage has lost his control over the planet's will, and the negative energy is constantly being converted. Perhaps this is the existence that he actively wants to control. You bastard. How can you turn my power into your existence? You still know how to play. You can really compare me to you. It's so much worse. The mage's words were full of helplessness, and the pressure of grief made him almost forget the meaning and value of his existence. But Sumo has restrained him in a very subtle way, so that he is now immobile by you in such a way that no one else can imagine it at all. As a result, the armor dragon and the orc boy also felt the change in Sumo's power. Yes, the negative energy of the mage fused through this method has been transformed into an existence that can maintain the will of the planet. This is life. I know you still have a lot of ideas, but you have never appeared in front of me. I am here waiting for your Pine Forest tribe camp. If you can come on time, I think you will still there is a way to live. Sumo tactfully continued to shrink his own strength, holding the opponent in his hands, while admiring the pain and anxiety of the opponent. Unable to change anything, he can only humiliate Sumo in front of Sumo. He is very aware of his own strength. It is impossible to fight against a ruthless person like Sumo. If there is a fight, I will be pressed hard by Sumo to the ground. Rubbing back and forth, despair was written on his cheeks, but he was still unwilling. This unwillingness came from the self-confidence in his heart. Come out and meet me. Don't hide in the dark. If the communication between us can reach a unified state at some level, then I think things will become much simpler. But if you still want to stick to something in front of me, then it's your time of death. Have you thought about it? Sumo's words were like a devil's whisper, which usually exploded around the mage. The Throng mage originally wanted to communicate with Su Sai in another way. But he found that his communication was useless, because there was no chance for him to negotiate with Sumo anymore. So the only thing he can do is to stay honest and become an existence that others can't believe. Kai Long and all the staff were ready to deal with it in a short time, because they knew what Sumo was going to do to them next. This is actually a little bit of a threat to them, but after the order and complete preparations, the mage will really come, or in other words, the mage is very scared now. He never thought that he would be looked at by Sumo and his men like a fool, and his heart was very painful, but there was no way to get entangled. He can't change anything at this moment, so he can only wait and see what kind of changes Sumo will make to him next, if Sumo is willing. He might still have a way out. Are you the one who controls me? To be honest, I never thought that I would lose so miserably. Sumo, what else do you want to do? I hope you can give me some opportunities to let me take it easy. After the mage said this, he looked at Sumo's expression very desperately. He didn't know what to do. But after he showed his current attitude, it was impossible for him to communicate well with Sumo like before. For him, Sumo didn't let his subordinates directly suppress him with full attendance points. On the contrary, it was a very easy way. Let him stay quietly, just let him look at the incident in front of him, as if Sumo wanted to keep him on purpose. Don't worry, I won't let you suffer from pain, because I have an idea in my heart. I think I can lead you to change something, but there is one thing, you must give me all your strength now. I'm here to reform you. After saying this, the other party was very upset when he heard it. He had never been bullied like this before. His current attitude is very desperate, but he still believes that he can calm down some incidents, and at the same time, he continues to use his own methods to influence Sumo. In fact, if this is the case, there is nothing to care about. As long as the mage can lower his head to recognize his state and apologize to himself, then Sumo himself has succeeded. Now Sumo looked coldly at this being held by himself, he smiled happily, and the recovery of the will of the world was also being controlled by his power. And let the other party completely fall into the extreme. This moment seems to be so calm in whatever he does, this is indeed not a peaceful existence. Sumo also knows that at this point he no longer wants to let something make him difficult to superimpose, and he is indeed a werewolf. Until now, he is still clenching his teeth and continuing to persevere. He is convinced that as long as he can withstand some kind of bombardment from Sumo, then he can get more. I still don't believe it. After this point, Sumo, what can you insist on relying on your strength? Alas, it's ridiculous, I can't even fight with you like before. This so-called strong man in front of him can directly give his breath to himself, which can definitely be called a good thing, but Sumo is still very calm now. Maybe this guy will play a backhand. This is not something that ordinary people can think clearly and understand. Chiron and Ryford took this guy down under Sumo's will, and his face showed a more magnanimous confidence. I'm curious, why don't you think that my approach will make you even more crazy? Don't evil people like you prefer to play with things that other people don't believe? Come on, I'll listen to you, the mighty power. The teasing was not just a joke, it was more like some kind of slander and insult to the other party. After feeling the pressure from Sumo, he sighed even more painfully. Because he had no way to get rid of Sumo's control, he could only hold on and wait for the final result. Originally, Sumo thought that he would intervene again in some way, but what Sumo never imagined was that the mage was still that honest. Nothing is neat, as if being bullied. This feeling really makes Sumo a little surprised. Shouldn't it be wrong? I thought about him and took him down, but Sumo kept him again. In Sumo's opinion, some things have not been lost clearly, so it is taboo to wait for a while. Don't worry. Your attitude like this is not a good thing for him. He may lose a lot, but you definitely can't be as comfortable as you are now. The orc boy calmed down. He understood what Sumo meant, so he calmed down a little when he did some trouble in. Maybe he didn't get things right, he definitely wouldn't be the one who made the mistake. Sumo is quite satisfied with this, but he is still very worried that Sumo will be hurt and affected by this mage from the side, which is another kind of thing that should not be there for him. I am afraid that only Sumo knows the danger next, but he still holds the guy in front of him tightly, because he knows that his opponent's actions at this time are impossible to succeed. As long as I continue to treat him like this easily, then the final outcome will inevitably be that I can get what I want, and Sumo can be so calm. This is just an illustration. He really has a good chance of winning, so he should be doing such a thing, and the mage doesn't dare to continue clamoring now, and this time he really retreated. Kaoru, Farid and the orc boy also all wanted to have a real conversation with Su. Because they want to figure out where the next development is going, some things have put too much pressure on them, and they don't understand a little bit. Saint, what should we do next? You have more ideas than we do, right? If we can solve some things easily like this, will everything become very simple? Do you want to do it again? Give us a way to see how things should be handled. After the orc boy said this, his expression was very serious, although he knew that he could not do something well. But he is very clear that after reaching this point, no matter how he looks at it, he can no longer be quiet, because that kind of quietness will make him continue to suffer some crazy madness that ordinary people can't imagine. Self-consistent. Sumo also understands the thoughts and attitudes in everyone's heart. When communicating with everyone, it is inevitable that he will feel a little uncomfortable, but he himself always grasps the bottom line in his heart. Then he silenced everyone and shared directly with them the truth about the will of the world. Originally, what everyone wanted to do was very simple, but everyone was frightened by Sumo's move, because they didn't know what to do, and they didn't even know how to do things. The orc boy couldn't believe the existence of the will of the world at all, he just sighed indifferently, and showed a look of disbelief, and hoped that Sumo would not scare him in such a way. He couldn't bear it. Saint, stop joking. If you have any opinion on us, you can just say it directly. Why do you talk like that? I'll tell you the truth. Although I said that I didn't bring thin people well, we have already started to develop. Any problems will be discussed later. I can't bear it. Sumo sighed after listening to what the orc boy said. He knew that the orc boy didn't want to believe the truth of these things, but he still looked very calm. Look at the way you are now, at this point. After I see you again, I even feel a lot of thoughts that shouldn't be there. Why are you so afraid of some things? Don't be afraid, with me around. I think I can help you in some ways, you just need to be calm, okay? The main idea of a Sumo is to let everyone know the truth about the will of the world. Only in this way can he make some things easier. Anyway, he has already said this, and he is not afraid of any problems. At this time, the orc boy showed unprecedented fear. Speaking of the truth about the will of the world, it was equivalent to a special kind of lie to him. Saint. What you said made me think a little bit. Could it be that the place we live in is just a beautiful place built by lies? I don't want to believe it is true. Are your words also true? Contains other hints? The orc boy's words exposed the last fig leaf in front of everyone. This is not only his problem, but also the ultimate thought in the hearts of others. They don't know, but they are very willing to understand the real existence of all this, and Su Li is not hiding it at this time. Tucking is just straightforwardly stating the truth that they will inevitably bear next. This is the fact. What he said is correct. The truth is like this: under the cover of the will of the world, everything is not true. After the will of the world was confirmed by Sumo, everyone fell silent, the more unbelievable it was. It seems that the more it will happen directly in front of them. This is an existence that people will never be able to figure out. Could it be that things will really happen like this and make them all suffer? It was precisely because of this that Chiron felt a great sense of fear in his heart, and the breath of the entire pine forest tribe trembled accordingly. Sumo, who was keenly aware that the current aura was developing in a dark direction, quickly stopped Kai Long's thoughts and told him to calm down and not feel panicked because of these things. The more you behave like this, the more you will be controlled by them. You have to wait to suppress all of this in the quietest form. Only in this way can we win the victory we deserve, but if you continue to go crazy like this, no one will save you. Sumo's words made Chiron realize in an instant that his mind was thinking in the direction of despair. The quietest thing is thought of as the craziest existence by myself. I can't blame others for this matter. At this time, everyone in him still has thousands of unwillingness in his heart, but he must be quiet. What are you doing, Chiron? Don't think too much because of such things. Let your heart calm down. Everything will be easier. If you continue like this, I'm afraid you won't even know yourself. Farid said this for the sake of Chiron. He couldn't bear to see a friend he just met develop towards an extreme style. It's because I think things are too complicated. When I look at some things, they are completely out of proportion to your thoughts. I want those more dangerous things to disappear quickly, instead of letting each of us live in the shadows. After Kailong said these words, he became more depressed, and the pain in his heart is enough to prove how tormenting he is now. Sumo also realized that these ordinary humans cannot bear the truth they can understand, so it is understandable that they are like this now. Don't make things so complicated. In my opinion, those situations would not have caused us stress. In order to let them understand the authenticity of this matter, Sumo brought out the mage who had been kept in the prison. The sorcerer is looking sluggish now. He seems to be able to perceive that what Sumo will do next is nothing more than to toss himself in the next step. He directly waved his hand to indicate that Sumo didn't need to do this. It was not a good thing for him or himself. You torment me so much, can you get any benefits? Sumo, I can tell you responsibly that you will pay a huge price for this. As the only person who can help you in your eyes now, it's better not to torture me that I shouldn't have, you know? The mage said this in a very complicated heart. He knew that he was nothing in front of Sumo, and being suppressed by Sumo had already made his heart full of fatigue. But those things of fate still left a big imprint on him, making him unable to make other choices. Kailong and the orc kid also stared at him with very special expressions. After all, it is inevitable that there will be some conflicts when communicating with this type of person. It is better to be careful. What a solution. Instead, he just looked at this guy coldly. This is the best explanation Sumo can give his subordinates now. My subordinates really want to know about the will of the world, because they can't believe it's true, so the story of this matter should be very simple for you, right? After Sumo's words came here, the mage was obviously stunned. At the same time, he turned around and looked at Sumo's subordinates, but his smile became even more special. In his opinion, Su Fu is just looking for trouble now. You guy. Let your men die early, right? Well, let me tell you this, their fate is already in your hands. Why do you still treat them like this? The world has always been what they weak people should know. This mage is extremely rebellious when he speaks, and he also has a bad word for Sumo and his subordinates. But we clearly understand the pain in his heart, and the mage doesn't want Sumo to continue in front of him debunk something and play a confrontation. That's interesting. Are you trying to create some more inappropriate feelings for me at this time? Sumo, you know your current ending and your final status. What kind of area will it take your children? I feel a little uncomfortable looking at it. I hope you don't continue to do this in front of me, okay? Even though he said so, Sumo has never made all these incidents easier as before. What should come will always come. You really thought I would be afraid of you. I just don't want my heart to be burdened with it anymore. Sumo. I have to admit that I don't have much time to live as a real evil mage, but I need your help now. It's just a light help, and it's also a kind of growth for me, please? The mage is already very unnatural at the moment, but he still wants to continue to intercede. For Sumo, the real meaning of the problem was not that he could make the mage kneel down in front of him and beg for mercy, but that everyone listened to the mage's words. They all felt that the situation was starting to go wrong. How could a ruthless person and a lunatic be so miserable when he spoke? You guys' performance is a bit outrageous. Who are you trying to scare in this way in front of me? Talk to me carefully. What exactly do you want? As long as I can give you, I will try my best, but if you go on like this, don't blame me for being rude. I am not in existence that can make you relax. Sumo's words filled the guy's heart with pressure. He seemed to want to continue to make trouble in front of Sumo, but soon he calmed down. After all, being alive is better than anything else, but at the same time he was also very scared. A seemingly ordinary and weak human being can take away all his evil power directly. Isn't this enough to explain the seriousness of the problem? I'm just afraid of you. Please don't treat me like this. We can talk about anything, but now I can't calm down in my heart. I can feel the persecution of your powerful force on my whole body. You are ready to kill me. I beg you, don't treat me like this. After the mage's words came here, the whole person shed tears of sorrow. Hai Long never thought that this guy would cry so miserably. The orc boy also showed a very helpless look. For them, this situation was a little outrageous, but it was normal, but they still had a very calm and solemn look. Okay. Why are you the number one person who pretends to be pitiful in front of me? Don't you have a limit for everything? I just want to make it difficult for you. As a human being, why would you what about with those vile brutes? What Sumo said. You want the other party to seem to not understand what it means, and the opponent still looks at Sumo with a very strange expression. As if he didn't understand what Sumo was trying to express at all, this made Su Li lose his defense. Since he pretended to be in front of him, Sumo didn't think too much about it, but returned his aura to him in a special way, which brought about a change. Don't torture me anymore. I will take responsibility for what I did wrong, but to torture a person so blindly, when he really has a chance to react, what else can you do? After the mage said this, he was in despair instantly, and Sumo could see that he didn't hide any secrets, but he needed to explore all the affairs behind him in a real sense. There are more secrets hidden in this guy than anything. It was the guy behind him who erased part of his thoughts, so that they would have some way to see the truth again. At this time, Sumo was also in this most delicate state, making him quiet. Don't act so unnaturally in front of me. I want to laugh at you instantly when I see you like this. I really don't know what kind of buddies you have in your head. Are you sure you want to continue to hide it? After listening to these words, Sumo also knew that the three of them have now accepted the reality of the will of the world. But they are also afraid of many problems in their hearts. Sumo also agrees with this point. It does not mean that every strong person can truly believe that there will be so many dangers and pains in this world. Soon, the mage also brought Sumo better news, that is, he was willing to confess everything he knew. These goblins calmly brought the mage forward, but the mage looked at Sumo and couldn't say a word. He only had pain and regret in his heart. How could he mess with such a murderous god? Looking at Sumo's calm as water, he has a lot to say but can't say it. Come on. What's the point of talking in front of me? Don't you want to talk about it? This is not a good thing. If you really have any difficulties, you can tell me. I can help if I can, but I will never let you suffer regrets. After Sumo's words calmly told the truth of all the facts, while the mage looked at Sumo, his heart was full of turmoil. What should I do or choose to continue lying in front of him? This may not be a good thing. After all, he still agrees with Sumo very much. Now with this attitude, he sighed, and after a little language preparation, he planned to say everything he knew. I am a guy who is controlled by others. To put it bluntly, I may not even be considered a piece of garbage in front of him. He gave me a way out, so that I can live in this world. I have already thanked you so much. After hearing this, Sumo laughed instead, realizing that such a story happened to him. Look at this mage's very desperate appearance. He knew that this kid must have some past events that other people didn't know about. As a human being, it is really something to be able to climb this far. Then you tell me everything you know, and after I listen to it, maybe I will let you go if my heart softens. The more you fight me in front of me like this, that's more of your problem. After Sumo said this, The other party finally showed a real bow in front of him, and then he slowly told Sumo about the anguish and misery he had experienced, hoping that Su Li could give him more tolerance. I was just treated by him as a well-driven slave. He asked me to fight for my life and follow his method to do everything bit by bit, but I knew that this was not the case. Not a good thing, and as time goes by, I'm still going back to where I started. After the mage said this again, Sumo's face showed a doubt starting point. What is the starting point? You made it clear to me. What does the starting point in your mouth mean? Is it some kind of dark incarnation? Or is it an image of evil forces? I must clearly understand this. There was a little calmness in Sumo's words, which caused the mage to have some illusions for a moment. Could it be that this person in front of him is not some kind of vicious existence? Although I don't have any strength, and I won't look for trouble in front of you like before, but now I can tell you the hidden places of the final darkness with my own methods. We just need to take them all down, then things will naturally be much simpler, mainly depends on whether you are willing to cooperate with me. After the mage spoke these words calmly, his expression had long since lost that complacent look, replaced by an honest look. Sumo can see that the reason why he is so calm is because he has recognized the reality. His master will not save him and has even ruthlessly abandoned him in this abyss. Faced with such a situation, the only thing he can do now is to quickly find the next existence that can tolerate him. Sumo didn't say much about this, but he tell all that needs to be said, don't hold back. Let's just say what you have to say. It's impossible to do you any good if you hide too much. I'm very satisfied if you can realize this. At least you want to let yourself live instead of becoming someone man's scapegoat. After listening to Sumo's words, the mage burst into tears even more. It is true that for him, being alive has become a false proposition. The important thing is how to prove his innocence to Sumo, which is very important. It's such a saint. The dark things they've been looking for have been making decisions about certain controllable existences on this planet. As long as they have a chance, they will display their powerful evil power and control those things that can be controlled. I have also suffered a lot for this, and I have tried every means to fight against them, but I have never won. After saying this, the mage showed a look of disappointment on his face, and he slowly took out what looked like a map from his waist. Sumo took it in his hand and examined it carefully. Sure enough, there was such an entrance near the Pine Forest tribe. Moreover, this entrance was marked with some mysterious words, so Sumo couldn't escape. You are very sincere, at least you have taken out what you have now, and don't worry. I will let you spend time in a very quiet state, no one will dare to attack you. This is the best guarantee plan that Sumo can say now. After the mage listened to it, there was some confusion on his expression. He didn't know what Sumo wanted to do, but after watching after Sumo turned around, he felt sad all of a sudden. Originally, he thought that he might be reused by Sumo, and it would be easier to do other things, but in the end he still didn't get the feeling he wanted. Those goblins were slowly after closing the door, a trace of anger appeared on his face. Kailong and the others had been waiting for Sumo in the meeting room for a long time. While Sumo walked away quickly, he took out the map he had just obtained and put it in front of everyone, and told everyone about some of the things on the map. This is the news I have received now, how we should act next. I think you all have the same idea as me. Sage, just tell me if you have anything to do. As long as we can still execute it now, we will never sit still, nor will there be any delay, and you will not be affected by this. Kailong now has first-class trust in Sumo, and this feeling and relationship has even reached a very fanatical level. And his subordinates are also the same. The entire Pine Forest tribe's worship of Sumo has even risen to a very crazy level, but Sumo is still very repulsive to such things, and he has taught Kailong many times, telling him he doesn't do it. You're going to make me fall into injustice. I've said many times that if we really want to change something, it's only through some kind of force that we can make this kind of thing change, but not like now. After Sumo's words came to this point, Kailong had a very uneasy thought in his heart. At this time, Kailong really understood what Sumo meant, but he was still the same meaningful look. Unlike Farid, who stared blankly at Sumo, he was waiting for some special news that could change everything, so he wouldn't be in a hurry. Seeing that you are all like this, in fact, my heart is very indifferent, because I know that some things will definitely be dealt with directly, so I will not worry about anything. Well, now we also have reasonable communication with each other through some methods to change our inner thoughts. Can you understand this? Sumo's meaning is very simple: continue to advance to really restore the will of the world, and let the other races win all of them as always. It is absolutely impossible to leave any chance for others to resist, and it is also in such a critical state that Sumo has more or less succeeded. so that everyone can be twisted into a twine in an instant, which is very proportional to what Sumo thinks in his heart. As long as the speed is fast enough, everyone can develop in a better direction under his unity. There is absolutely no falsehood in it, and it will also create some very interesting things for Sumo. This feeling is indeed true, but from another perspective. This also means that Sumo will have to face some things that other people can't face. He very frankly told everyone the reason for the problem, and told everyone that if they want to really solve the problem next, everyone must pay the price together. Our enemy has made the final preparations for us. He wants us to lose something, but in my opinion it is useless. Can you understand what I mean? You should also know when to start, right? Sumo's expression was calm when he said this. That kind of calm reminded Farid of the feeling of fighting Sumo again, and he couldn't help but have a fear of lying. But he knew that this also meant that they would expand outward, integrate more ethnic groups, and make the world a better place. I will lead the long-haired monster to be with you, Saint. We will do what you say. There is absolutely no unwillingness or the idea of destroying. Please believe us. Maybe because of those things I feel scared and tangled. I will calm you all down through my own method. Fared. Just by looking at you, I know the pain you are thinking in your heart right now, and I'll tell you that those things are not worth your pain. The words Sumo said made Farid instantly come back to his senses. He also understood what Sumo meant about him, but he didn't dare to say anything more from the beginning to the end. Seeing that everyone calmed down, Sumo did not sit idle, but directly explained the next action plan. There are bound to be many problems in this operation, and you may all be hurt at a certain level, but I believe that as long as you can solve the problem by according to my method, it must be a matter of course. Even after Sumo told everyone about his plan, the audience couldn't help but look extremely surprised after listening to Sumo's plan. In addition to their fear, what was more important was a shock. They didn't expect that Su would cut down the entire pine forest. Although this kind of behavior is very inappropriate, it has also been questioned by some people, such as the current Chiron. Saint, I hope you can forgive me for your disrespect. You will sooner or later provoke public anger. I do not recommend that you cut down the pine tree. We can trim it and remove it if you don't need it in some places, but it is not good to cut down. After saying these words, Kailong is very melancholy in his heart. He knows what Sumo means, but he also understands that this kind of confrontation will make Sumo extremely angry, but there are not so many choices. Although Sumo is a saint, Chiron still wants to try to question it. He knows that his attitude is not particularly good, but it is better to talk now than not to say anything, and he may regret it at that time. I knew you would say this, but it doesn't matter, it just happened to confirm the thoughts in my heart. You are still a controller with a relatively attitude. I will tell you that, outside of this area in those places, some things have already been arranged by me. Special things. Chiron and Farid frowned after hearing this. The orc boy who didn't understand what Sumo meant was also frightened. He felt that he didn't understand anything, so it's better not to say anything. As long as we are fast enough, we can unearth the huge natural fountain under this pine forest. Natural fountain. After listening to what Sumo said, Chiron's expression instantly became even more amazed. It's just something that I have known about in the legends. The current Chiron looks very serious. He doesn't feel Sumo talking and deceiving him. He just thinks that he should be more frank and ask more carefully. Saint. What kind of thing is that? Can you tell me in a convenient way? It also allows me to have a relaxed understanding of these things. I'm just afraid that I didn't understand these things myself, but instead added to you a lot of confusion. Less disaster. There is also a reason why Kailong said this. He really wanted to understand these things from Sumo's mouth, which was very important to him. If he can understand the natural fountain clearly, he can also ask the elders in the ethnic group. After all, he has heard the elders describe those things before. What more can I say? There must be something under the fountain that can benefit us. The reason why I said this is that I am afraid that you and those old people will have painful thoughts about certain things, so I am very happy. Speak out calmly. Sumo's words made Kailong very melancholy now. He carefully remembered some stories he had heard when he was a child. It was what the elders in the former ethnic group told him, that there was a magical fountain in the ground. As long as they can search in place, they can get a lot of things, which is why Chiron Plus is so shocked. He looked at Sumo and really didn't understand how Sumo discovered all that, but he believed more and more that the saint in front of him must have some way. He can lead him and his people to get rid of the things in front of them, so no matter what, he must support Sumo's choice, which will be the last stubbornness of all their forest tribe fighters. As long as you give an order now, I will start logging immediately. I will cut down all of this place, and I can make this place quieter. don't worry about these 10 points. The attitude that Kailong expresses now can be called sincere, and Sumo also understands this. But then Sumo didn't let them move, but looked at the goblins next to him. There are still many wild goblins in the jungle. This is what I learned from the goblin leader. Next, we will make all these goblins act and let them join our team together. And only in this way can we recognize each other's strength. Sumo's words are very wise. He knows that everyone hates goblins very much, but he is so casual, and with 2 or 3 sentences, everyone regards goblins as a renewable resource that can be used. This is the real meaning good thing. Although there is still a lot of reluctance and difficulty in everyone's heart, what Sumo said is not wrong, because some trivial matters are just now fighting with Sumo's reasoning, and it is too meaningless. Everyone also acquiesced in Sumo's words and immediately joined the action. Goblins can also take this opportunity to show their super strength, which ordinary people can't understand at all. In about 3 days or so, the goblins have completely resolved some of the incidents. This kind of fast action method even thinks that the times are weird. Why are their actions so powerful? These goblins cherish the hard-won opportunities very much. Each of them worked very hard, and showed their natural advantages in front of Sumo, that is, hard work equals. Sumo did not suppress the goblins. On the contrary, he admired the actions of these goblins and gave them more care and help, which is impossible for ordinary people to give. The growth rate of the goblins is also faster than what Sumo can think of. Many of them are all under the help of Sumo, and they become stronger bit by bit. This is for Sumo. In fact, it is a good thing. Things are going in the direction he thinks now, and Sumo is very satisfied with the deforestation of the pine forest tribe. Coupled with the quick action of the goblins, more than half of the entire forest has been directly exposed, and many people actually don't understand Sumo's behavior. In their opinion, Sumo is doing this just for nothing, but soon they realize how important it is. Logging not only makes it easier for them, but also gives them more opportunities and allows them to have more land in this place. They always felt that Sumo did it for his own selfish desires, and when it became their city wall and bulwark, the thoughtful warriors of the Songling tribe supported Sumo even more. Sumo is already used to this. It's not the best thing to do, but at this moment he has also collected some goblins in the periphery. These wild goblins are nothing compared to him, and there are many goblins among them, who are even desperate to escape Sumo's control. But soon they once again learned something about the powerful goblin leader in front of them, and after thinking twice about joining it, it became their best practice. It didn't take long for these goblins to go from the kind of worry at the beginning to this kind of bottleneck. In other words, they may have just adopted some methods to make their hearts feel a little uncomfortable. After all, it is a wild existence, and it is naturally a little idea to join the big organization without any discipline. It is understandable that Sumo did not take any extreme measures against these goblins. On the contrary, he used his most macro-directed methods. Let these goblins get the protection from the real strong, and let each of them know that only by following the stronger guys can their lives become better. The goblin army must be at least about 30,000 now, and the Beastman side has more than 100,000, not to mention the Pine Forest tribe. They and the spear monsters match each other. It has completely become the best and most gregarious communication body. The communication between the two parties has been carried out in an orderly manner, and it is developing in a direction that makes everyone feel comfortable. This has been considered to indirectly meet some of Sumo's requirements, but his heart is still very serious. He knows that anything is superfluous before this area is developed. In his heart, he has been thinking about how everyone should behave after the big fountain is dug. In fact, the most important purpose of this fountain is to help the entire planet to clear the veins. After connecting the veins, the will of the world will recover faster than before. This is why Sumo is doing this, making them speed up to do these things. To be precise, Sumo is not for himself, he is to make the situation. Of course, some people may not understand this, and those people may still regard Sumo's actions as a manifestation of selfishness. Sumo is used to gossip about him by others, who are a small part of the Pinewood tribe who seem uncomfortable with themselves. And when they are doing something, they simply don't want to make themselves the best existence of the Pine Forest tribe. This wave of people has a lot of opinions on themselves, and Sumo is also very clear that if he really wants them to give up their opinions, I am afraid that he will have to pay a lot. But it doesn't matter anymore. Nothing can stop Sumo from moving forward, unless there are some fierce enemies. This may be temporarily impossible for Sumo. The probability of seeing the enemy is very small for him, and even there is something more unique on his expression. Just when Sumo was still thinking about the direction of the future, he got the good news that the big fountain had been completely dug out. Chiron is also very excited to report this matter to Sumo, and he hopes that Sumo can also share the joy in front of them with them. Saint, it seems that we have really succeeded. We have been able to obtain such benefits, and we have quieted a large area of the Songling tribe. To be honest, when some things continue to develop like this. Kailong no longer dared to think about these things, and he could clearly understand the excited thoughts in his mind. Sumo looked at Kailong's appearance and knew that this kid had been thinking about it for a long time now, that the Pine Forest tribe had become a city-state, and communicated with those peripheral legendary city-states. It seems like you might be trying to communicate with them in some way, so let's get everyone together for a meeting. I'll talk to them first to see what their thoughts are. We'll rethink these things later. What do you think? Sumo's words are also the safest. After listening to Kailong, his little head nodded like a chicken, and he continued to talk about his big plan, as if he could succeed next time. On the conference hall, the orc boy Farid and Sumo all frowned and looked at the current Kailong with a very proud look. He seemed to have a lot of things he wanted to do directly. Come out. Saint, let me tell you this, if we can successfully expand in a short period of time this time, all the benefits will surely fall into our hands. Things that we dare not believe, or even impossible to succeed, will be concentrated in our hands little by little. Kailong didn't say anything at all, but Sumo directly indicated that he didn't want to, and he would tell all the incidents by himself. Let me tell you this, the situation is not as simple as you think. Did your Pine Forest tribe have any conflicts with the guys from the Y? Did they fight? You should be more careful about this. I know better, right? When Kailong heard Sumo's words when he was triumphant, it was as if cold water had been poured on him. His expression was very melancholy, and he didn't think too much. But when he looked at Sumo, there was a little more worry in his heart, and he didn't know how to describe this feeling. Saint, you are right. It may also be that I think too much about things myself, all kinds of situations outside. It shouldn't be as beautiful as I imagined. How could a contract full of killing and madness be more secure?